Good morning. Welcome back. We do have a little more information for you all today, so sit tight. I'll try to get through it as quick as I can, and then get to your questions, because that is what's the most important thing out of all of this. A lot has changed. I wanted to kind of start a little bit with providing some updates on the EIDL and the SBA Advanced Loan Grant that is now a component of that. I'll also cover the basics for the CARES Act, the Paycheck Protection Program, the Debt Relief Program, the SBA Express Bridge Loan, and local gap assistance. We've met with several of our local lenders, micro lenders, that are also putting together gap finance packages for businesses who need money fairly quickly. And I'll go over that a little bit. I'd like for us to, and then of course I'll end up by listening to what all you all have to do. Our objective today would be to focus on solutions by starting with the facts as we know them, and to find the answers. So again, much like the last time, the Texas SBDC team continues to work the puzzle, and it has been a puzzle. It's been a moving target. And as frustrated as you all are probably finding yourselves just trying to have a live voice to talk to, well, we're doing the same, and we certainly understand the cause behind that, just because this is a new world and we're overwhelmed, and we're doing the best that we can, and I think everyone else is doing the same. So I have tried to temper myself a little bit, become a little more patient, find patients where they might be lacking, and try to work through the process. Our website has been updated with some facts, and we are continuing to refresh that now. One of the things that we have really struggled with was being responsive to emails and phone calls, and it's simply a monumental task for us and everyone else. I'd like to encourage you, if you need to reach out to us, it would be better if you went through our website and our e-center, where the button sign up. Go ahead and hit that button, fill out your information, and then we'll reach out to you. That way we can make sure that you're in the system and we don't lose track of you. If you kind of work around that system, we have an opportunity of losing track of who we've talked to, who we haven't, that sort of thing. So once you're in the system, we'll try to stay on top of things. I promised that I would try to do what was current and verified data to the best of my ability. I think that we know a little more about what the EIDL looks like and how it's playing out. But there are some other programs that we need to talk about, and as I talk about those, I want to caveat it with that this is as of the last report that we've got, so we may not necessarily have the absolute most accurate, or we might not have a final version, but we'll have the most accurate as we know it. So with that, I would like to start with the EIDL update, the direct loan update, and remind you all that that is, now that has gone through another iteration. The application for the EIDL is much simpler. I went through it myself and to see what you guys would be up against. I think everyone can fill the form out. You may have some questions based on terminology, that sort of stuff, but we'd be happy to work with you on try to explain that as you go through it. But I think you'll see it's a fairly simple application. They did have to put it on another platform. The original platform crashed, obviously not developed or built to be able to handle the kind of workload that is actually coming in now. So so I would like for you to also be aware of one of the things that they added as a result of the CARES Act, but as part of the EIDL, is the $10,000 up to $10,000 advance loan. that has the potential, probably will be forgiven, but you will have to make application for that forgiveness. Is there's a button in the application process, in the new application process, that you click on. It says that you want to participate in that advanced loan, and that should be turned around fairly quickly. I did some time frames I've seen is 36 hours. And so, but in order to apply for that, if you didn't have that option when you first applied, keep your loan number. You've been assigned a case number. So when you go back into the system, you'll need to put that case number in, but go back into a system and reapply, which gives you the opportunity to apply for the $10,000 advanced loan that has the potential to be a grant. It has a forgiveness component to it. And there's been a lot of conversation around how that works. But as of today, that's what we know. We do know that all of the CARES Act applications begin tomorrow, so we should have some information from most of the banking community about what their processes and requirements are going to be. So with that, I want to step into now the CARES Act and remind everyone that that has passed through Congress. It has gone, or is going through the process of guidelines, and most of those guidelines have now been, I think most of the terms have now been determined, and the compliance guidelines are going out to the lending institutions so that they can make sure that they remain in compliance with the guidelines, and then you will see some of this begin to really kind of unfold. But I want to talk a little bit about what that looks like. The application is a 7A application, where we talked about initially the EIDL is a direct loan application to the SBA. In the CARES Act, there's a program called the Paycheck Protection Program, PPP for short. And in that program, you will need to make that application directly with a participating 7A, SBA 7A lender. We do have that list available. It's on the SBA website as well. And we're working to identify maybe some of those banks that we know are participating but are not on the list on the SBA. I'm not sure how current that list is. I would assume that it was current, but I'm not going to rely on assumptions. We'll try to verify it as we go along. I wanted to talk a little bit about the eligibility related to the PPP. It's easier it would probably be easier for me to tell you who is not eligible than who is eligible. They have really expanded the eligibility on the PPP. It's basically, if you have 500 employees or fewer, you're eligible. If you let me just I'll read the statement. That is that the small businesses, including nonprofits, veterans organizations, tribal business concerns, sole proprietorships, self-employed individuals, and independent contractors with 500 or fewer employees are eligible to apply. And some businesses that are not necessary, they may be defined as small businesses through some other size standards with the SBA, but the general rule is if you're 500 employees or less, you're a small business. And so I wanted to get that out. The loan amount is up to $10 million. It's to payroll support, paid sick or medical insurance premiums, mortgage, rent, and utilities. Begins from February the 15th through June the 30th. This is a little bit of a recap of what we talked about last week, but what has changed is the terms. We are now looking at a 0.5% interest rate with a 2-year maturity. And it's automatic 6-month deferment, so you wouldn't be making payments for 6 months. It is a 7A a product with a 100% guarantee through participating banks. and I'm talking about participating banks, not preferred lenders. So there are many out there, and you would go directly to your bank to make that application. I have seen a very simple application form, but I think each bank is going to have to develop their own uh, process and criteria. So it would you would need to check with the bank uh, going forward. The payroll portion of the PPP is subject to forgiveness if you continue to meet certain criteria, which is, can you put people, if you have already laid people off but you quickly rehire them, or if you maintain your employees and you don't change their salaries or wages, and you maintain that for the period of the I believe it's an 8-week period for now, and it extends through June. So if you maintain that through June, you can then go back to the lender and apply for that forgiveness, and that forgiveness should be extended. A little bit, I'm going to look over here real quick onto the fact sheets and make sure that we're not missing anything. I wanted for you to know when you're supposed to apply, and there's some separation here. You apply April 3rd is the first opportunity to apply for small businesses and sole proprietorships. April the 10th, independent contractors and self-employed individuals can apply. They're doing this to try to space out the impact. There's not enough capacity for the amount of demand. They're trying to find a way to actually manage that process. So keep that in mind. The first 8 weeks of total payroll cost is what you need to be prepared to show. What is that? And prove your business is fully operational on February the 15th, 2020. The verification that you had employees and that you made the payroll and paid the payroll taxes, and a verification of your average monthly payroll. So what some people are doing is developing a spreadsheet that identifies their payroll costs month to month, and holding on to that so that they can demonstrate, if need be, what that looks like month to month over that time period. No collateral is required, and there's no personal guarantees on this. It's retroactive from February the 15th to 2020, and no fees are permitted to be collected from the businesses. So there's no fees associated with making this loan. All payments are deferred for 6 months, and I mentioned that it has a loan forgiveness. Previously we talked about the caveat that you had to pick one or the other. Well, that's no longer the case. What we are faced with now is that you can apply for both and receive both. You just can't use them for the same purpose. And so what I see some doing is using the PPP program because it has the forgiveness component for the payroll, and then using the EIDL to meet other cash flow needs. And those are two different purposes. Now, if you've already made application with EIDL with all of your expenses included, before you accept the offer, you will need to amend, if you want to, you will need to amend your application to take out those expenses that you may want to put against the PPP, which would primarily be payroll. And I would look to have a conversation with your banker and with your case manager to clarify that, since one has come out before the other, and you have probably already made some application there. The other program that we're working with now is debt relief program, and the debt relief program says that all SBA products, whether it's a 7A or a 504, all SBA products now, existing loans, new and existing loans, those payments will automatically be paid by the SBA to your lender. So you will get 6 months of payments covered. Now, if you've already filed for a deferment, I believe you had that we had up to 90-day deferment. If you've already filed for that deferment, at the end of your deferment period, the SBA will pick up those payments and begin to make those payments. So you would need to make sure you communicate with the bank that's holding your SBA note and communicate that. Have a conversation with them. They're aware of this, but it's certainly to your advantage to have that conversation and talk about when will your automatic payments be made from the SBA, how long, and then eligibility for deferment. You can have deferment. You can do this either before the deferment and then be eligible for the deferment later, or you can do this after the deferment. So if you've already asked for a deferment, at the end of the deferment, go ahead then and apply for the debt relief program. The other program that we talked about a little bit last time was the well, before I go into that, the Express Loan Program that is what many people have been talking about as the $10,000 grant. That's really the advanced loan program. The $10,000, it is a loan, not necessarily a grant, but when it's forgiven, it actually turns into a grant. Now, under the Express Loan Program is a local gap financing option, and for under the Express Loan Program is where we see the emergency bridge loan, or the bridge loan program itself. What we see is BLP. I wanted to go over that a little bit because that is an option, and the turnaround time is also relatively quick. And the primary thing here is that the terms are different. It's up to $25,000. You do not have to, there's no collateral requirements, there's no personal guarantees. But here the maximum interest rate is 6.5% above whatever the daily prime rate is at the time you make application. And the maximum maturity on the loan is 7 years. Used for the same purposes, but does not have a forgiveness component. There are some fees associated with that. It's usually 2% of the loan or $250, whichever one is greater. And there are still about 3 forms, SBA forms, that you'll need to fill out to qualify. You will also, the real piece about the bridge loan program is that it can only be done through a qualified express lender, loan lender. And it has to be a lender that you have had a banking relationship with prior to the disaster declaration. So that's done mostly because they're already familiar with your business and your financial and operational profiles, and so they can make certain decisions quicker. They know they can do processing, and they can provide a little more of risk mitigation because you have that relationship. But if you do not have, if your bank that you have a relationship with is not a qualified express loan provider, then you are not eligible to apply for the bridge loan program. Now, what I'd like to do is to open it up for questions at this point and see if we can try to give you some answers. So with that, I'll shut up and I'll listen and see what you all have to say.
Okay, I'm going to start with Kimberly. Just verify on this one. I know you may have answered it, but go ahead and clarify. It's been very confusing as to whether a business can apply for both EIDL and PPP. The PPP application only asks for an explanation, and most applicants haven't gotten a response for SBA loan.
Right, and right now you can apply for both, and I would recommend that you apply for both. It's that you can't use both of them for the same purpose. So if you're applying for payroll expenses with one, you can't apply for payroll expenses with the other. My thought would be that if I was going to pick one over the other, and payroll is one of the forgiveness targets, then I would want to apply payroll to the PPP, and then other cash flow expenses to the EIDL.
Next one is, what is the difference between SE individual and sole proprietor? They are the same to the IRS.
I'm sorry, now say it again.
What is the difference between SE individual and sole proprietor? They are the same to the IRS.
Yes. Well, the definition of the self-employed individual and the sole proprietor is, a sole proprietor probably has a legal status with a DBA, which will have a legal status with a DBA, but some self-employed individuals may not necessarily be filing under a DBA, but they are filing it on their personal income taxes. So they could actually be in business without qualifying as with a DBA.
Okay. How does the CARES Act apply if you've already furloughed staff?
How does the CARES Act?
How does the CARES Act apply if you've already furloughed staff?
If you quickly rehire them, then you're qualified for that forgiveness. Otherwise, the PPP will only be you'll only be eligible for the employees you currently have. But under the guidelines, if you will rehire them, you can actually then qualify for that loan and the forgiveness component of that loan.
Okay, where are we supposed to apply for the PPP? I called around various banks and virtually all are closed for the coronavirus and only doing drive-through ATMs. Yeah,
you need to apply with your bank. Probably it's an online application at this point with your bank. If your bank is a participating, an SBA participating bank, and there are quite a few of them. If not, then use the list to locate an SBA participating bank, and then I think most of them now have online application. I do know that it's probably not live at this point. It won't be live until tomorrow for the first round of April 3rd, and then April 10th for the second round. But most of the banks are scrambling to actually get the guidelines worked into their system, to get the guidelines, get them worked into their system, and then to find ways to efficiently take application. So if you don't have a relationship with an SBA participating lender, and your particular bank doesn't want to become an SBA participating lender, which I would imagine a lot of them are going to try to at this point, then you'll need to build a relationship with an SBA participating lender to make that application. That application, though, what I've seen is I've seen some online applications. They're fairly simple, but each bank is going to be required to come up with their own processes and protocols.
Hey, Joe, can you restate the dates as to when people can apply, since we have a little bit that came on a little late?
Yes, so on April the 3rd, which is tomorrow, small businesses and sole proprietors can begin to apply. On April the 10th, independent contractors and self-employed individuals can apply. So they're trying to divide the caseload here a little bit so it's more manageable.
Next one is, so we need to apply for SBA loan deferment on current loans, and then do the approved need.
No, at this point, all current loans will have a 6-month forgiveness. That's what the debt relief program is. The SBA will pay the notes to your bank for all current SBA loans. Now that's SBA loans, not traditional loans, but just if it's a 7A or a 504, the SBA will make those payments for you for the next 6 months. If you're already in a deferment, when that deferment is over, the SBA will begin to pay those payments for the next 6 months. If you are applying for the debt relief, or actually you don't even have to apply for it, it's automatic, and you will begin to see that probably about mid-April. So some of you may have already had to make your April 1st payment. And if that's the case, then work with your bank, because I think there are some options of how to work through that. I think that, but you'll need to have that conversation with your bank. But if you have not made the deferment application, then for the next 6 months, the SBA will pay your note for you, and then following that, you're eligible for the 90-day deferment still. So it doesn't take away the deferment; it just shifts it.
If the bank is not ready to work with us for debt relief program or PPP, we have 7A loans with them. Can we approach a new SBA lender for PPP?
Yes, the PPP is not a part of typically what happens whenever you have a loan with a bank. If you have a 7A loan with a bank and you're trying to refinance that loan or to extend or expand that loan, you have to work with the bank who initiated it. But if you're going after a new product, and in this case, the PPP is a new product. It's a new 7A product, and your bank does not want to participate, you can go to another bank. It's always good to start with the bank that you have the relationship with first, but the only program that is tied directly to an existing relationship is the the bridge loan program.
There doesn't seem to be guidance on how to report payroll for a partner in a partnership that doesn't receive guaranteed payments. What documentation will they need?
All right, I got to unpack that one a little bit. Slow down, ask it to me slowly so I can unpack it.
Okay, there doesn't seem to be guidance on how to report payroll for a partner in a partnership that doesn't receive guaranteed payments. What documentation will they need?
Right now, they're saying the only documentation that you need is something that you can develop that demonstrates how the payroll was done. Just document payroll, which includes, I believe at this point, owners draws as well. So you start with that documentation. There may need to be more, but the local bank should have those guidelines. I haven't really gotten into that piece of it yet. So
they speak of an 8-week period, but all documents show a time period from 2/15 to June 30th. How do I calculate the average wages needed? If my lender does not have the application yet, they confirm they are participating in the PPP, but said yesterday they do not have it.
That's correct. And as of yesterday, many banks still did not have the guidelines. And so we had some preliminary information, and I'm honestly working off of preliminary information myself right now, but it is the latest preliminary information. So the Cohen report will come out at noon today. We'll be able to get more information, and then and we're constantly reaching out to our banking partners to see have they received the information? Do they have their protocols, processes in place? So right now they're willing to participate, but the guidelines still are not complete. And I know this is frustrating to a lot of you all, but let me just kind of say that in all the years that I have been involved in this program, it typically takes anywhere from 3 to 9 months to process an SBA loan. We're talking about a matter of weeks, and from the time this thing started to where we are. And I know that's not very helpful for those of you that are really in dire straits. But this is an unbelievable speed of processing. So I just ask that you continue to be patient with the process. Francisco, could you read the question again? Because I feel like I lost half of that question.
Sure. They speak of an 8-week period, but all documents show a time period from 2/15 to June 30th. How do I calculate the average wages needed?
Do the calculation on an 8-week period, and then the time frame is more of a time frame of eligibility to apply. They're asking for your base your expenses based on the 8-week time frame. So do the 8-week time frame. Understand you can, what you ask for and what you get may also be different, because the SBA will make some determination of what your actual eligibility will be as you make the application.
Is there any opportunity to hire additional employees and get payroll forgiveness for them?
That's a good question. That came up yesterday, and right now, the general consensus is that yes, because the purpose of the PPP is to keep people, keep the payroll going, or keep people in business. So, but we don't have clarity on that just yet. But like I said, the general consensus is yes, you should be able to include them in your payroll expenses, just based on what was the principal purpose behind the PPP program to start with.
Is there, there is not a selection option available for, let me start again. There is not a selection option for a C Corp on the PPP form. Is it available to C Corps, or is C Corp the default?
No, it's available to all. If they didn't have it on there, then that might be an oversight, but no, all legal entities are accepted.
Okay, this one's a bit of a long one. Payroll does include independent contractors as well as types of compensation, including salaries, wages, commission, healthcare, and insurance premiums. This seems amazing, but what if we have 1099 people that are seasonal, which throws off the average monthly amount? And do you have to have paid health medical benefits through payroll, or is it okay if that's paid separately via credit card as it has been for years through the biz checking account?
Yes, the how you do it is not important here. It's the fact documenting that expense. If you do that, not all businesses do, but if you do, then document that expense. That's eligible. As it relates to 1099s, there's a little bit of an issue with 1099s in that if it's a true 1099, then they are independent contractors and eligible to file for their own PPP program. And they would be considered an expense, an operating expense to the business, but not necessarily a payroll expense, if they're truly treating 1099s the way they should be.
Okay. Please clarify the difference between the April 3rd and April 10th application. That's the first part, if you can answer that.
All right, yeah. The April 3rd, small businesses and sole proprietors, those people who are operating under a DBA. In the April 10th is independent contractors. Those would be the 1099s, and the self-employed, those who are providing goods and service, or primarily services, but who are providing goods and services that do not do that under a business, doing business as, or any other business structure.
Okay. So Nancy, did that answer your second question with regards to, okay, perfect. The next one is, would the business apply for both its business, payroll, employees, and its contractors all starting tomorrow, or would the contractors be expected to do this on their own?
Yes, the contractors are expected to do this on their own. And it's a simple application. It really is. I went through it. It didn't take me very long. And they don't ask any real complicated questions.
Right now, I don't know when my business will be able to reopen. I'm concerned that if I apply for the PPP for my team, it will negatively impact them after 8 weeks if we are not able to reopen at that point.
Well, there's some decisions that every business owner needs to make regarding their business. And the goal here is to try to keep the businesses in play for as long as possible. And at the end of all of this, if you can't survive as a business, then you weren't able to survive. But I would think that that you would want to try to stretch out your lifeline as long as you can, in hopes that we will see either an extension of this or begin to see a turnaround, and that would keep your business and your employees in play.
Okay. I just want to make sure that this one was answered. This is from Dominic. You might have answered it, Joe. How do we apply for a loan deferment with the bank, or do they happen automatic?
How do you apply what now? Deferment?
Yes, the deferment.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, you have to apply for the deferment with the bank. You have to ask the banker for that deferment. The debt relief program is automatic. The SBA will start paying your payments for the next 6 months. Now, you would want to go ahead and communicate with your bank so you get that all aligned, so that you don't, when the SBA started to pay and what's the last payment the SBA is going to make, so that you don't lose track of what your obligation is and when should you start paying again. But to make that deferment, that is a request you have to make directly with the bank who's holding that note.
Okay, with regards to the question for approved lenders, I'm going to put it in the box again. Now, this is what the SBA San Antonio Regional Office has sent us with regards to approved lenders, so you guys can check it out. I'm not sure what's going on with the SBA website. The statement they have here is a lender match page on the SBA website is being redirected to another page. So I'm going to put the list out again for you guys. But again, it can change. Just we're putting what's out there as it's coming to us from the let me go back because it dropped me. Okay, if we are accepted to the SBA disaster recovery loan and find out the amount is way too much or not enough and not worth it, or we decide to just do the PPP instead, can we elect to not start the disaster recovery loan? Or once applied for, are we locked in to have to start the disaster recovery loan if they approve?
No, in fact, you don't have to do anything until you reach that point where you've received the approval letter and they want you to sign off. At that point, you make the decision. Now, once you've already committed, those are some things that you can probably work directly with the lender or the SBA, depending on which direction you went in. But you're not required to take it just because you made application. At any point in time, you can withdraw from the process.
How can you be simply self-employed and qualify for PPP?
I can't really answer that question. All I know is the criteria they gave us, or as it has been presented, at least up to this date. The qualifications, I would say make application and let the qualifications sort themselves out. If you don't know where your status is, then I would go to the latter. But if you know that you're self-employed, but you don't have a formal business structure, and you are actually counting the income as personal income and filing that with your income taxes at the end of the year, then you would find yourself as self-employed. If you had a DBA, you would be responsible for paying some quarterly sales tax. You would have that you created a formal structure. Now, it would still flow through your personal income tax reporting, but it would flow through there as a Schedule C. And so with that, I would say make the application and let's see where you fall in that. I'm probably not, I'm not being very clear here, but I'm also a little bit puzzled myself. So,
will the PPP cover my 1099 contractors?
No. Oh yeah. Well, yes. Let me restate that, because there's your 8 weeks of payroll plus 25%. So it will cover, the 25% will cover operational expenses that are above the payroll expenses, up to 25% of the payroll expenses. So you could include some of your 1099s as expenses on your PPP application, but the 1099 portion would not necessarily be forgiven. It may, but it wouldn't necessarily be. We do know payroll will be, but some expenses above payroll, that 25% above payroll is also eligible. It's just that right now the guidelines are still not definitive enough for me to tell you absolutely, but it may be, yes.
Is there any help in any program that helps people who are in startup, non-operational, but have invested almost 100K for lease, hold, improvements, etc., but now cannot become operational? Things are stalled because of the virus.
Yeah, I think that they expanded the eligibility under the PPP to capture those businesses that were uh, relatively new startups or who have already made a capital investment as a startup. Go ahead and apply. I think the banks themselves will have a better guidelines on how to process that. But that has been a part of the conversation, and I do know that their intent is that they want to be able to help businesses that have already made their capital investment but have not yet launched. So that's I would say go ahead and make application, and then but go into it uh, with the expectation that there may be some challenges along the way to your eligibility and qualifications.
Now, when you're stating application, are you meaning the EIDL?
No, I don't. I am meaning the PPP. I'm not sure if the EIDL. My thought on EIDL is that was limited to existing businesses in operation, and the clarity there was businesses in operation at the time of the event. So I think the only place you may have some wiggle room is going to be under the PPP.
Is there an SBA program for recovery of lost rent on my apartments that are a separate company?
Yes, that's covered under the. That's actually covered under both. That's because that's lost revenue.
Okay, this one is a continuation from a previous question. My business is non-essential, so we are currently closed. I intend to reopen my business, but I don't know when I'll be able to do so. If I start paying my employees through PPP, that disqualifies them from unemployment. If I'm not able to reopen by the time the 8-week period ends, that will hurt my employees. Assuming the period will be extended is making a significant gamble at their expense.
Well, you can suspend your, and I'm speaking a little bit out of turn here, but you can suspend your unemployment if you can go back to work and you can receive your paycheck. You can suspend your unemployment until such time as it needs to be reinstated. I don't have that cleared through TWC at this point, but that's kind of my understanding. And so if you do put them back to work, you are simply extending their unemployment eligibility out for the period of time that you're actually putting them back to work and providing them payroll.
What options do business owners have if they were paying themselves through an owner's draw versus through payroll?
Owner's draw is eligible under PPP.
Okay, with regards to the list that I sent out, now again, that's just the SBA district office that covers our area. Joe, do you know the area that the SBA covers under us?
I'm sorry, say that again.
The document that's got all the approved lenders on it, what area does San Antonio cover for SBA?
Well, Yeah, there's a 79 county area that they cover, and most of the people within the Central Texas viewing area would be covered under the district office out of San Antonio. Um, but we do have the list of participating bankers for the San Antonio district, the Houston district will also have that list, and so will the Dallas district and the Lubbock district. And there are some other district offices around the state that, particularly down in Corpus and the Valley and out in El Paso, all of them will have their own list localized. And I do know that Region 6, which is the 5-state region, also has a list of eligible SBA participating banks. So um, you can go to each one of their websites and see what it is. I know the website that our district office put out a website listing, and it's pretty accurate. It's pretty true to the people that we have been engaging with for a number of years now.
Okay. What other expenses besides payroll sound like they'll 100% be forgiven if all instructions are met during the 8-week period?
That would be any expense that you included in the 25% above the actual payroll calculation. So when you calculated what your 8 weeks of payroll were going to be plus 25%, any other eligible expenses in that 25% have the potential to also be forgiven along with the payroll under the PPP program. As it stands today, I have to keep, I have to keep kind of putting that out there because it's been very fluid.
Okay, the approved lender list, someone posted above from Texas State, that would be me. Seeker to only be smaller mom and pop shops and credit unions. Do you know if the big banks like Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, et cetera, will able to do the PPP?
Yes, and the reason that you don't see the bigger banks is because their corporate headquarters may not be located in our district, so you won't necessarily see them posted, but also they're a preferred lender program, which means they can authorize a lot of they have the authority from the SBA to authorize SBA loans without having to necessarily go through the full SBA process. And a lot of the larger banks who have any bank that has their corporate offices outside of our district would not be on that list, but they are still participating lenders.
Can you clarify the sign-up date for nonprofits for the PPP?
Yeah, let me pull that back up again. For nonprofits, you know what? They didn't give me that's a good question to ask because they didn't give me a start date on that. So I will ask that question with the Coleman report today and see if I can't publish an answer out on that. A great question. Sorry, I don't have an answer for it.
Okay, what if my current SBA lender is not an SBA Express lender?
Then you are not eligible for the bridge loan program.
Can you review when to go to an approved Express lender versus when to go to an SBA approved lender?
Yeah, if you would, the only reason that you would go to the Express lender is if it's the bank that you currently have a working relationship with, a business relationship with, and you're wanting to apply for the bridge loan program. Other than that, there really isn't a reason to go to an Express lender specifically for the bridge loan program. Now, some Express lenders do provide other services, so they may actually be, participate in other lending, SBA lending programs. So you may still want to communicate with them as a participating lender with the 7A, the PPP program.
Okay, what if this goes on more than 8 weeks? What happens then?
Well, that's there's speculation out there, and I don't want to necessarily deal in the speculation, but they are still talking about another round, and there's the possibility that that other round will come along, and as they extend the other round, they'll extend the programs. because the goal is to keep businesses viable, keep people employed so that you can ramp back up the economy as quickly as possible. It's actually a very smart strategy because it's difficult to, I made this comment yesterday that as a former entrepreneur, I did everything I could to hold on to the employees I had for as long as I could, because if you think it was difficult hiring people before this, it's going to get very difficult to hire people and ramp them up, have them qualified and trained after this. So yeah, there'll be a lot of people looking for jobs, but what you have right now are people that are already trained. They're already a part of your system. They don't have to be ramped up. They don't have to be, you don't have to go through the process of training and qualifying or pre-qualifying people that you'd have to do if you had to turn around and rehire people at the end of this. And just a matter of cost and timeline involved in that. So it's better to keep them in place, even if they're not working, but they're able to be paid, than to not have them in place and try to start this all over
Okay, I think that's about it, unless anybody else has any other questions. In closing, we will have another one on Tuesday, which I will be sure to put on our website. Joe and I have to discuss what we're gonna do on that one, but we'll definitely have it. It'll be at the same time, 9:30. Joe, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think hopefully we'll have maybe updates, more definitive information. We're trying to do that as we go along, and so we should have some updates on the PPP. I'd love to hear back from you all on how that process is going. We can't work on correcting the things that we're doing wrong or missing if we don't know what they are, or we don't know what the specific problems are. So your feedback is welcome. I mentioned earlier that we are overwhelmed, as so is everyone else, and including you all, I'm sure. So we are trying to manage this as best we can. So if you would go ahead and do the sign up on our website, make sure we have all of your contact information in play, and that will allow us to also blast out any emails, kind of group emails on any updates or things that we have we've identified as we go along. Don't also mention the fraud alert that we got from SBA this morning.
Yes, we have gotten some information from our SBDC office with regards to fraud, and we did put that on our website. So the link that I put down, hold on, let me redo it again. With regards to the question about our webinar, we didn't have one yesterday. The last one we had was on Tuesday, and the recordings are on our website. Let me get to it real quick, and then I'll send you the link. And so as soon as this is over, I'm hoping to get it online, hopefully within the next hour. In case you missed anything. So if you go to our website, on here we have everything that's related to COVID with regards to the CARES Act and everything that falls underneath there. If you need to sign up, there is a sign up link on there too. We have the video links posted on our website, and I'm working on it right now, but we will go ahead and put the scam information just in case you guys are getting contacts from people. With regards to the EIDL, all that information will be there. So give me maybe about an hour and I'll have all the rest of that on there.
And just for a quick note, if it doesn't have .gov at the end of it, then it's not something you want to open up. All right. I lost you, Francisca. I can't hear you.
Sorry, I think that's it. And then we'll see you guys on Tuesday. I will be sure to post the link on our website. If you go to the training tab, it'll be there, okay? If anything, follow us on Twitter and Facebook. I always put the links on there too, okay? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. See you Tuesday.